With the start of August, new tier shifts have taken place in Smogon competitive singles, and it's quite a lot to cover here with some very interesting and surprising shifts, like Cresselia and Moltres rising to the OU tier, while Tyranitar and Gyarados have fallen down to the RU tier. The usage stats from last month also show how the meta has developed in, well, the past month. In this video we will be covering the tier shifts that happened in the Gen 9 OU tier in depth, while touching on some tier shifts for the lower tiers as well, and we'll be pointing out some notable usage sets across the tiers. 4 Pokémon have risen up from the UU to the OU tier, so let's start with Cresselia first. Cresselia has seen quite some success as a bulky set sweeper, especially under dual screens, using the moves Calm Mind, Moonblast, Store Power and Moonlight. Cresselia can easily check and set up on a lot of common Pokémon in the metagame like Great Tusk, Iron Valiant, Zapdos and even more. With Terra Poison it can even set up on more commonly seen Pokémon like Golden Go, Dragapult, Slogin Galar and Anemoris. It can be quite difficult to stop Cresselia due to its insane bulk and the damage it can dish out with stored power after a few Calm Mind boosts. Moonblast is there as a powerful coverage option for any dark type that dares sufficient to store power, and Moonlight just keeps it healthy throughout the match. Greninja fell to the UU tier not long ago, but has risen back up due to Pokemon Home giving it back the ability Battle Bond, which raised its attack, special attack and speed after a KO for one-time use. While it has been nerfed from its original state in Gen 7, Battle Bond can turn Greninja into a dangerous early game wall breaker or late game sweeper, especially with Life Orb and having access to Priority Water Shuriken, which can be powered up with a loaded dice item as well. Aside from that, Greninja is still a great offensive threat with its respectable special attack stat, very high speed stat, and amazing offensive profile with Water Dark, and access to solid step moves like Hydro Pump, Surf and Dark Pulse, not to mention its coverage with Ice Beam to hit grass types and Grass Knot to hit water types. Greninja was one of the top Pokemon in UU, having a 20% usage rate, so UU players just lost a great offensive water type that was able to threaten common Pokemon like Skeledirge, Donphan, Cleaver and Hisuian Arcanine. Meowscarada fell down to the UU tier last month due to new toy syndrome and many great checks to it being available like Zapdos and Anemoris. However, Meowscarada has returned with its great offensive spikes and lead spike set. Meowscarada is one of the few leads that can reliably set up spikes, while also being able to beat Hisuian Samurott, which is a very common spikes lead as well. Meowscarada can also use fast stance to stop other leads from setting up hazards, and it stops defog attempts and core chains from Corvic Knight and Cinderace respectively. Not to mention that Meowscarada is also able to be the most common rapid spinner in the tier, this being Great Tusk. Overall, Meowscarada is a great spike setter that can reliably keep them up, and aside from that it's still a great offensive threat with Protean as well. Meowscarada was literally the most used Pokemon in UU, having a 28% usage rate and being able to threaten Skeledirge, Donphan and Kokreval, which are very common. Moltres has seen a lot of success as a specially defensive wall that provides great utility too. Moltres' typing allows us to check many common threats like Great Tusk, Kingambit, Iron Valiant, Golden Go, Anemoris and even more, while being able to threaten physical attackers with a burn from Flame Body and Will-O-Wisp. Aside from that, Moltres can keep itself healthy throughout the match with Roost and provide momentum for its team with U-turn. Aside from these 4 rises, 2 drops have also taken place, these being Iron Threat and Volcanion. Let's start off with Iron Threats. Threats dropping was a long time coming as it was literally hanging on by a thread. Get it? No. Iron Threats is not really a bad Pokemon per se, but it's just severely outclassed by Great Tusk, which does the same thing but essentially better. Iron Threats is a better rapid spinner against a Pokemon like Golden Godo and can check Slogin Galar and Zapdos better. Threats does however suffer from being checked by common ground types like the aforementioned Great Tusk and Landorus T. Iron Threats is also not the premier steel type in the tier, as Kingambit and Golden Go and even Corvic Knight are better steel types overall, and stacking weaknesses in a team is not ideal. It will very likely be a top 10 Pokemon in UU though, so there's that. Volcanion is an interesting drop, and the only one here that I'm not exactly sure about why it has happened. My guess is that it has to do with the meta being quite fast paced and Volcanion is pretty slow. New toy syndrome certainly plays a role too, and it might be hard to fit on a team as well. Volcanion is still a strong Pokemon in its own right, and I will predict that it will be very good in UU, as it can threaten a lot of Pokemon in the tier with its powerful Steam Eruption, like the aforementioned Skeledirge and Donphan. Aside from OU, there have been a lot of notable drops from UU to RU as well. Azelf, Gyarados, Bisharp and Mew, which have all been great Pokemon in both OU and UU in the past, have all dropped alongside Tyranitar, which has been an OU staple ever since its introduction in Generation 2 and being arguably the best Pokemon in Gen 3, Gen 4 and Gen 5 OU. Thunderous, which was banned in Gen 5, OU in Gen 6 and UUBL in Gen 7 and Gen 8 has fallen down as well. Lastly, Iron Leaves, which was banned to UUBL before Pokemon Home, fell down too alongside Iron Jerkulus, which was a good Pokemon in the tier as well before Pokemon Home. Alongside Chansey, which has been a staple in OU and UU respectively, has fallen down to the PU tier. There are some very interesting usage statistics as well. Kingambit is almost beating out Great Tusk as the #1 used Pokemon in the tier. Great Tusk has been the most used Pokemon ever since the start of Generation 9, and now Kingambit is less than 1% of overtaking it, which goes to show how powerful and great Kingambit actually is, being featured on almost 50% of teams, just like Great Tusk. Cinderace has risen up in usage a lot, being 11th in usage. This is mostly a response to the hazard heavy meta that we are in right now, especially with Hisuian Samurott being as common as it is, as well as Golden Go being able to block the most common forms of hazard removal. Cinderace's score change is just incredible for hazard control and more importantly bypasses Golden Go, which is important. Cinderace also is a great utility Pokemon with its amazing speed stat and having access to Pyro Ball for pressure alongside Will-O-Wisp and U-Turn. Greninja went from UU to 23 in usage, while Dondozo and Sandy Shocks went from the bottom to now the 21 and 24 Pokemon respectively, and rightfully so. Aside from that, it looks like Garchomp and Hoopa Unbound are barely hanging on in the tier, and if these were to drop next shift, I can assure you that both of them will get quick banned from UU. Also, Roaring Moon is kind of low in usage as well, which is worrisome. Interestingly enough, Zacian Crown is the #2 Pokemon in the Ubers tier despite it receiving numerous nerfs in Generation 9. I can only imagine that its fairy typing and high speed stat make it great against the many dragons in the tier, and of course it's still a strong Pokemon. Arceus Ground is the #5 Pokemon and makes quite a lot of sense, as this pretty much the most reliable check to Miraidon in the tier. Arceus Ground is also a pretty good Calm Sweeper, though I am surprised that Arceus Normal is not at the top, but that's probably because of the next Pokemon we're gonna talk about, Skeledirge. Skeledirge is also very high up in the Ubers tier, being #7, because it's a reliable unaware wall against common threats like Zacian Crown and Rayquaza. And Giratina Origin has seen a resurgence as well, being #8. Giratina Origin still has access to Defog, which is very scarce right now, so that would explain the usage. It's also a hazard remover that can easily threaten Golden Go, so there's that. Also some interesting tier shifts or notable usage statistics that stand out to you? Let me know down below and check out the videos on the screen. Thank you for watching and see you next time.